This is the tempo, this is the note. Ready. Oh, 1, 2. Just be really careful. Remember I said about simpletons? It's not Kyrie. Be brave about that. Everyone performs Messiah in a version that's very similar to the way that Handel would have done it. I was poking around the library, and in an old filing cabinet amongst a load of old programmes, I found an interesting document. It was by far the oldest, and it was a programme from a performance of Messiah in 1812. And when I opened the programme, it was a choral piece, Messiah, and it was annotated by a member of the audience, written in pencil in Italian. And I thought, how exciting. We could do Messiah, but we could do it in this very unusual local version using this material.
It's a harp rehearsal. This is bar 239.
That's fine. Keeping music fresh is terribly important. I also think doing things a bit differently is important. So who would be stupid enough to perform Messiah with all these extra bits? Well, we would. So we decided we would put a special version of Messiah together based on this programme that we found in the library. In the pressure of trying to prepare that amount of music in a short rehearsal with players that think they know it but it's slightly different, it was quite pressured on the day. And then to go into the performance in the evening, having spent a 6-hour period rehearsing or whatever it was in the daytime, it was quite exhausting.
Andrew, you're getting ahead. If you could stick with me as much as possible, perhaps a pair of glasses there. We were perfect. Let's do that again. Here we go. And 1, 2.
Most often in performance, especially classical music, where everything is kind of written down. So you know exactly what's going to happen. You know there's a G sharp in bar 4, So it's quite rare for there to be a sudden stop and somebody comes out in a sequin dress and bursts into song in Italian and shoots up to a high F or something. I had this idea when I first started, it was a bit wacky, that maybe the diva intrusion should bring it even more up to date. And maybe what we ought to have is some kind of pop sensation suddenly burst into something. And my wife said, don't be stupid, it's completely incongruous, doesn't make any sense at all.
So my objective was to be as diva-y as humanly possible.
But she also performed the role, if you see what I mean. She was a little bit more haughty than she is in real life. I think at one point she sort of hands something to me.
So I had to do a few dramatic entrances, and the last time I had to take my shawl off and just fling it at George, the conductor, which got a laugh from a lot of people, but I just saw a few women in the front row look utterly horrified at me, and that's not my personality normally, so I just was desperately saying to myself, no, it's fine, it's part of the character, they don't really hate you, they hate the character, it's fine. But it was quite a nerve-wracking experience.
She's got this kind of manner where she puts me in my place in this little chair next to the podium, while she gets on and does her singing.
I'm very aware as I'm walking out that I'm in an exposing dress, and I'm walking with a lot of sassiness and diva energy, which is immediately going to annoy people. And I'm immediately thinking about the fact that I'm starting the concert when I shouldn't be, because that should be down to the tenor. So a lot of mixed emotions, but mainly nerves. Lovely about portraying Angelica Catellani was that I was still a character, so I could come on and I knew that whether people liked it or not, it wasn't me doing it, it was the diva.
And I hadn't given her any instructions as to what to wear, and I was quite surprised when she came out in her Shirley Bassey sequin number.
The first one had a very high leg split which felt awful coming out into a church wearing that, but I was just thinking, for the good of the character, it's for the good of the character.
I was rather surprised in several respects. First of all, that she had departed from the material that I'd researched and added her own ornamentation and things like that, extra notes, you know, to give it real extra pow. And in some ways, I think that was absolutely appropriate. That's exactly the sort of thing Angelica Catellani would have done. I discovered the aria that was most likely to have been inserted after the Alleluia chorus. This momentous moment in Messiah is suddenly followed by the great diva upstaging it. Well, it turns out she'd had a theatrical background, so she was way up for this.
Randomly just popped in an Italian aria, which is sort of sacrilege to do that to the Messiah. You just shove in a piece of music that does not belong from a completely different period of time, where I went up to a high D, so it's sort of quite vocally acrobatic, which again is just not in the style of Handel, and was just, yeah, sacrilege.
One of the differences was that we weren't just doing the same old thing that choirs do with Messiah. We were doing something a little bit different, a little bit new, and a little bit more engaging.
There's always sort of a relief when a performance is over, because as much as you like doing it, and as much as you sort of love the thrill and the adrenaline, you're just like, oh, I got through that unscathed. But the weirdest part was during the interval, George got me to sign programmes, which you can see my reaction is just mortifying to me. And I was standing there and there was a couple of people I knew and I was like, don't leave my side, don't leave my side, this is so embarrassing. But people really, because I was selling it, they were buying it, like they loved it.
Yeah, you sense anyway as a performer, you know if an audience is enjoying themselves, especially in that environment. I mean, we've just done a concert with only 80 in the audience, but there were 450 in the audience on that day, and you could really feel the atmosphere. And it was expectant and exciting, and there was this sense that people were really expecting something special, I think.
With oratorio, sort of classical music audiences, the average age is a little bit older generally, but I think the younger members probably expect something like that. I just think there's so much immersion in surreal telly and things like that, it's not going to come as a huge shock that something a bit quirky is going on or a bit different. I think it's easier to accept that change.
Keeping music fresh is terribly important. I also think doing things a bit differently is important.
It wasn't the emotion that they were expecting to feel that evening, but people were stirred by it. And if that's something that these people have seen every year for the past decade or maybe longer, for the first time in all of that time, they got a different experience out of it. I was a little bit timid, I think. Now, I think I'd probably go hell for leather a little bit more and make sure I really got the diva element across.
I mean, it was written in 1741 and people are still performing it and people are still reinventing it all the time. So yeah, sure, it's going to be around for a long time to come.
I said yes, and I said, what about brass? And I said, only on a Sunday. Unless it's Saturday, I'm not going. Okay, here we go, from the top.
Because the trouble with performance is it's ephemeral. It's there, it's gone, and it's a memory. And you have to get used to this in my business. It has a life and a death cycle. And if you want to do it again, you can in 10 years' time, but then it will die again, you know. So I don't think there's any permanence with these things. And in fact, it's time for somebody else probably to take Messiah and do something else with it. It's